Hey, welcome back. This lesson is Viewport Navigation and Transforms. In this lesson, we will learn how to navigate the viewport. And then we will start learning about actors within the viewport. We will learn how to edit the location, rotation, and scale of an actor, and we will learn about Unreal units. And we will also learn how to duplicate an actor. And then we will finish off this lesson by creating and saving a new level. So in the previous lesson, we reduced our editor layout to this minimal interface look where we just see the viewport. So now let's take a look at how we can navigate around our level from inside the viewport. If we look down towards the bottom left corner, we will see this question mark, and when we hover over it, it says click to show viewport controls. So if we click here, it's just going to bring up a web page that gives us a complete list of the controls that we can use to navigate the viewport. So you can pause here and take a quick look at the controls, but I'm just going to give us a quick rundown right now of the controls. If we close out of this, if we hold down the left mouse button in the viewport and pan the mouse forwards and backwards, we will move throughout the world. If we pan the mouse left and right, we will turn on the spot. If we hold down the left mouse button and the right mouse button at the same time and pan the mouse forwards and backwards, we will move up and down throughout the world. If we pan it left and right, we will strafe left and right throughout the world. If we just hold the right mouse button by itself and pan the mouse, we will pan the camera around our level. Okay, so that's one way that we can navigate around. What's a different way? Well, if we hold the right mouse button down and press W, we move forwards. If we hold S, we will move backwards. If we press A, we'll strafe left, and if we press D, we will strafe right. If we press Q, we will move down, and if we press E, we will move up. And when we move, we can probably see that we're moving quite quickly. If we scroll down on the mouse wheel and keep scrolling down, our movement speed will eventually change and we will start slowing down. And if we scroll up, you've got it, we can start speeding up. So we have complete control over our movement speed by using and scrolling the mouse wheel. We can also adjust the camera speed by looking up towards the top right of the viewport, and we have this camera speed. We can just click this and adjust the slider to control the speed. So I don't expect you to remember every single control that we have just covered. However, I would encourage you to take a moment and pause the video here. Make sure to check out the viewport control list and then just have a go at navigating around the level within the viewport. And when you feel comfortable, come back to the lesson and just hit resume. So I hope you're feeling somewhat comfortable with the navigation now, but really the more you navigate in the viewport, the more you will get used to it. So let's move on and take a look at what we can do with actors inside the viewport. We can select actors just by left clicking on them, and when we do this we see this little gizmo here. This is the translate tool, and it allows us to move an actor in our level. We can do this just by clicking and dragging on one of these arrows here, and when we do this we are constraining and translating the actor across a particular plane of movement. So for example, with the red arrow, I am translating this actor across the X plane of movement. With the green arrow, I am translating the actor across the Y plane, and with the blue arrow, I am translating the actor up and down on the Z plane of movement. In some other game engines, Y is up, but in Unreal, Z is up. And we can translate across multiple planes at a time by clicking and selecting these bars here. And when we do this, we are translating across 2 planes at a time, and we can translate across all the planes just by clicking and dragging on this center here. So when we move an actor, really we are affecting this actor's transform, and we have different transform tools. So this translate tool is one of the transform tools. If we press E, we can switch to the rotation tool, and we can rotate the actor on the yaw, pitch, and also on the roll here. We can press R to scale the actor uniformly or non-uniformly. Okay, we can press W to switch back to the translate tool, and when changing tools, we see in the top right of the viewport these icons changing, showing us which tool is active. And we can also toggle between these tools just by clicking on the icons. So the location, rotation, and scale of an actor makes up the actor's transform. Let's just bring back the details panel quickly. If we come up to Window, and then Details number 1, we can see we have this transform section when we have the actor selected, and this is giving us the world location, world rotation, and world scale of the actor. Okay, we can see X, Y, and Z here as well. When we hover over in the rotation, it's showing us the roll, pitch, and yaw. We can see that when we translate an actor, the coordinates of the actor's world location updates. The same applies when we scale an actor, and the same applies when we rotate an actor. So when we use these tools, we are changing the transform of an actor. We can also change an actor's transform directly within the details panel. We can click and type it in values for the X, Y, and Z here, and even on the rotation we can click and drag the yaw, pitch, or roll to rotate the actor. So to summarize, each actor has a transform. When we select an actor, in the details panel we see a breakdown of the actor's transform, and we can see that a transform is made up out of location, rotation, and scale. In the viewport, we can edit an actor's transform by using the transform tools. So let's move on and take a look at Unreal units. With this chair selected, we can see we have an X value of 5 for its location. This is 5 Unreal units. If I change this to 6, I've just moved it forward by 1 Unreal unit. And 1 Unreal unit is equal to 1 centimeter. So I've just moved it by 1 centimeter. But what happens if I just translate the actor using the translate tool? Well, if I just nudge it forwards once, we can see that it's now increased by 10 centimeters or 10 Unreal units. So why did it do that? Well, we can see we've got this huge grid that covers this whole level, and currently we are snapping to the grid when we translate this actor, and we can see this further by looking up towards the top right of the viewport. We see it says enable or disable snapping to the grid with this icon, and it's got a value of 10, so we're snapping by 10 Unreal units. If we change this to 100, we can see that the grid changes, and now we are snapping by 1 meter. Okay, so that's translation snapping, but we can also snap with rotation. We're currently snapping at an angle of 10 degrees, but we can change this to different angles, such as 30 degrees here. And we also have snapping for scaling, so it's at 0.25. We can also change this so we have different incremental sizes of scaling. I'm just going to zoom out right now, and I'm going to show you how we can duplicate actors. If we select this floor piece, and if we hold down left alt and translate the actor, we will duplicate the actor. Okay, so that's one way we can duplicate it. We can also switch to rotation mode, and we can duplicate it by holding left alt and dragging as well. But how do we undo any changes we make? What happens if we make a mistake? Well, we can undo. If we come up to Edit up in the top left of the editor next to File, we can do Edit, Undo, or we can press Control and Z, and this will undo our changes. And if we made a huge mistake, we can always just reopen the level by either bringing back the content browser and opening the minimal default level, or we can come up to File and then Recent Levels, and we can come to the most recent level, which is of course minimal default, and we just want to hit don't save because we don't want to save any of these changes. And now we have the minimal default level back to its original state, so we now know how to edit the transforms of actors and even duplicate them. So right now let's put these new skills to test with a fun little challenge I have for you. So word is getting around about your new Unreal skills, and tonight we've been asked to host a dinner party inside the minimal default level. Tonight we have to set 3 tables, and we need to be organised, so each table needs to be on its own floor. Each table needs to be decorated with its own statue, and the guests arriving tonight have unique requests for their tables. Table 1 is bringing 5 guests, and they've requested their tables and chairs to be scaled by 0.5. Table 2 is bringing 3 guests, and they have requested their tables and chairs to be scaled by 0.835, and Table 3 is just a single guest who requests their table and chair to be scaled by 1.6. So remember to pause the video here, take a look at this slide including the image I've added on the right, and just make use of what you've learned so far in this lesson. And if you make a mistake, don't worry, you can always press Ctrl Z to undo, or you can reset the level by reopening it. So good luck, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, so let's take a look at how we can do this. I'm going to start by zooming out. I'm going to select my floor piece and change my snapping size to 100 Unreal units. We can hold left alt and drag on the translate tool to duplicate. So we can duplicate a floor piece and duplicate the table. So now we have 3 tables and 3 floor pieces. We can select the statues and duplicate them to decorate the tables. And we can move one of the chairs over to a table, and we can duplicate another chair to another table. Okay, so this is looking good. Let's move in closer to one of the tables. So let's say this is table 1. It needed to be scaled down by 0.5. So we can switch to the scale tool to do this. And we can see the scale in the details panel. We can also use the scale tool to scale the chair down to 0.5. And I'm going to move it closer to the table. We can change the snapping size just to get a better position for the chair here. Now for the statue, we can bring that down, but we might need to change the snapping size to a lower value to make it fit onto the table. We can select chairs and rotate them so they can rotate inwards towards the table. And we can just go ahead and duplicate them so we have 5 chairs. For the rest of the chairs here, I'm just going to fast forward the video. And remember, we can use the angle snapping as well, just to snap the chairs in a better position. And don't forget, you can manually type in an actor's transform from within the details panel. And remember to turn off snapping by hitting the icon on the viewport, which will allow you to have some freeform placement. Okay, so I hope you took the time to try this challenge, as it would give you some hands-on experience with navigating in the viewport and editing actor transforms. Now, let's wrap up this lesson by creating a new level ready for the next lesson. To do this, we can come up to File and then New Level, and it will ask us to choose a template as a starting point for our new level. Let's just go ahead and choose the default. Do we want to save changes to minimal default? Sure, we can just hit Save Selected. Okay, and now we have a new level. Let's save this level straight away. We can come up to File and Save Current, or we can hit Save Current on the toolbar. So let's click this. It's going to ask us to name our level. I'm just going to name mine Level 1, and we can hit Save. And if we bring back the content browser, we can find our level in the main directory under a folder named Maps. So if we go inside this folder, we have a level 1 now. Okay, so this is the end of this lesson, and in the next lesson, we're going to start building our game Marble Run by having our first introductions to blueprints. So when you're ready, I'll see you in the next lesson. Hello and welcome back. So things are moving forwards now. This lesson is Blueprint Introduction. We're going to start by seeing what happens when we press play to play our game. And then we're going to move on and have our first look at blueprints. We're going to start by working inside the level blueprint. We're going to learn how to execute code, and then we're going to take a look at how we can print messages to the screen. Okay, so let's take a look at this play button on the top toolbar. When we click this, we are going to play our game. Let's give it a try. Okay, so it doesn't really look like much has happened, but that's to be expected because we don't really have a game yet. But something has happened. We can see that our camera has moved to the center of the floor. We can focus the viewport by left-clicking into it once. And with the viewport focused, we can pan our mouse around, and look, we're moving the camera without even pressing any keys or buttons down. We can move around with W, A, S, and D, and we've got some sort of presence in the world now. We can move to this floor, and the floor will stop us from actually moving through it. So there's a specific reason for all of this. This is because we are now playing the game as Unreal's default pawn. A pawn is an actor that can be possessed and controlled by a player. Let's break this down a little further. I'm going to stop playing the game by hitting Escape. And now I'm going to bring back the World Outliner. If we come up to Window and then World Outliner, we can see that we have 7 actors in our level. But look, if we hit play, we suddenly have 18 actors. And check it out, the default pawn is one of them. I'm just going to stop the game again by hitting Stop. So what's really going on here? Well, we can see that we have this icon in our level with this arrow on it here. This is the player start. We can select it and we can move it around. Okay, and when we actually hit play, Unreal is spawning the default pawn at the player start, and then we possess the default pawn and we can control and play as it. So check it out. Look, if we hit play, we have now spawned at the player start. But look, if we press Shift F1, we can bring the mouse back and we can hit eject. Okay, and look, it says possess. So we've just stopped possessing the default pawn. We can zoom out a bit with the usual editor controls because we're back in the editor mode now. And look, we can see the default pawn. It's basically just a floating invisible sphere. So when we press play, Unreal finds our player start in the level and it spawns the default pawn at the location of the player start. And then we possess the default pawn, allowing us to play and control it. So now we know how to play our game. Let's move on and begin our journey with Blueprints. Blueprints is a very powerful visual coding system built directly into Unreal Engine 4. And we're going to start by coding inside the level blueprint. To find the level blueprint, we can come up to Blueprints on the toolbar. And when we click this, we can open the level blueprint here. Okay, so this is our first look at blueprints, and just like with our first look at the Unreal Engine 4 editor, we can close all these surrounding tabs, and I'm going to do this now just so we can focus in on this center graph. So Blueprints is a node-based visual coding system, and we can see two nodes on the graph already. One is event begin play and one is event tick. So there's this comment on begin play, and it says this node is disabled and will not be called drag off pins to build functionality. So let's try that. Let's start by printing a simple message to the screen when we start the game. We see this white arrow on the node. This is the execution pin. When we click and drag out from this pin and release it, it will open up a window where we can select an executable action. So to print a message to the screen, we want to look for a function named print string. We can find this by coming down to the utilities category, and we can double click on this to expand it, and we can expand the string section, and we can call this print string function. And look, this is what this F stands for. It is a function. So when we call this function, we can see that our nodes are now connected together in the execution pins here. Okay, it's telling us that when begin play executes, it will move on and execute this print string function. So let's take a look at what happens now. Let's close out of this blueprint and let's hit play. And look here, we just have a simple message that pops on our screen for a second and says hello. Let's head over back to the level blueprint. And look, we can expand this print string just by clicking this arrow here, and we can choose some more options here. We can choose the text color, so we can change the color if we want to, and we can also choose the duration of how long it is on the screen for. I'm just going to change mine to 10 seconds. And just like with regular coding languages and IDEs, we can compile our code just by hitting this compile button. But at this stage, we don't really need to compile our code because Unreal automatically compiles it whenever we hit play. So let's close out of the level blueprint now, and let's see what happens. If we hit play, we now see this orange hello, and it stays on our screen for 10 seconds. We can hit stop again, and let's come back into the level blueprint. To stop the begin play from executing the print string, we can right click on any of these execution pins and we can hit break link, and look, it says break link to the print string. Okay, so now we have no execution flow going between these. We can also break the link just by holding down left alt and left clicking on one of these pins. So that's another way we can do that. We can move nodes just by selecting them and just moving them around as well. Let's take a look at executing our code a different way. We can affect how we execute our code. We can use some flow control nodes. If we drag out from the execution pin on begin play and come down to utilities, and then we have this flow control section. Let's expand this. There's a lot of different nodes here, but let's focus in on this delay function. This is pretty simple. We can delay our code by a certain duration of time. So if we just change this to 2 seconds, and then on the completed, after the delay has finished, we can connect this up to the print string. If we close out of the blueprint and hit play, it will now delay by 2 seconds and then show our message. So right now I have a challenge for you. Using what we've learnt on begin play, I want you to print a series of messages to the screen. These messages can be anything you want, and you can call as many print strings as you want, and think about using the delay here as well. So good luck, pause the video here, and in a second I will run through the process with you. Okay, so there's no real order we need to do this in. I'm just going to drag out the execution pin from begin play, and I'm going to call the delay function. If we know the name of a function, we can actually type and search for it in this bar. And when we do this, Unreal is going to try and auto-suggest the closest result for us. Okay, so I can call a delay that way. I'm going to delay it by 3 seconds, and then I'm going to call a print string. And when we call a function, we can also see the category is under there as well. So print string, I'm going to print a message. What should we print? Let's print hello world in capitals, and I'm going to change the color of the text to something different. Let's change it to green, and we could put it on a duration of 5 seconds. I'm going to delay it again because we're going to create a series of messages here, and we can delay it by 2 seconds and then call another print string, and we can print another message such as blueprints are awesome, and we can change the color again to, let's change it to purpley pink here, and then we can change the duration to, let's say, 5 seconds as well. Okay, we can keep going with this, just keep adding as many as we want, but I'm going to finish it up here, and we can just hit compile and save here to save the level, and we can close it out and we can hit play. Okay, delay it by 3 seconds, hello world, delay it by 2, blueprints are awesome. Cool. Okay, so in the next lesson, we are going to be taking a deeper look into blueprints and start creating some gameplay events for the game Marble Run.